Hello. I would like to inform you that what you're about to listen to are the views and comments from the hosts and guests and only reflect their own views and not the community as a whole. I hope you enjoy the podcast. And Eddie, play that banter section.
No, I have not. I'm not very good with listening to podcasts. I am that ADHD. I need that double stimulation. I need that video and voice shebang.
Oh, right.
Preferably with music playing as well and maybe some TikToks on the side.
I hate to lie, but I think I'm the same. I generally have like music playing on one side, YouTube playing on something else, playing on my game.
No, that's literally what I do.
Yeah. Oh God, do I have ADHD then?
Oh, you might want to get yourself checked.
Oh God, I don't want to get myself checked. No.
No, medication is slay. You get so much done.
I forget how young you are. Oh my God, you slay. Oh my God.
Okay. Just tell me you want me to change my language.
Yes, change your language to English mode, please.
Top of the morning.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I have no idea. I have a few screws loose.
Oh,
clearly.
Jesus. Yeah, don't we all. Hello everybody, this is the Ed Talks About Podcast, a weekly podcast talking about cosplay, Comic-Con and everything else. I'm your host Eddie, and this week we are talking about furries in this economy. Is it right? Can we talk about that? Yeah, so we're going to be talking about furries, and joining us on the podcast is B from Honey Bee. Woo!
And the crowd goes wild for Honeybee. Bee. Stop. No, get rid of it. Stop it. I'm going to leave. And you're not going to have any content for Monday. I am going to leave. But yeah, my name is V. I run the Fursuit making account T Tower on Instagram. It's spelt funny, so you might have to find it written down somewhere.
We will do like links and all at the end of the podcast. But just to explain something. I had to jerry-rig a lot of things today just to get this podcast working, and we're still not there because we're meant to have a second guest here. Ember of Ember Wolf. We love you. I'm doing heart shapes in the sky in my hand. We had so many technical issues. I had to drop her as a guest, so we will get her on the podcast another time. So yeah, so apologies to Ember. We will get you on the podcast another time. So, but we're in good hands though. We have B, who I've been informed that she's a good guest. And also Jerry Rigging. So I do like change a lot of the settings on the recording studio I'm using, and I'm somewhat paying for it now. And because of that, I've got like sounds like this.
Please do not abuse these sounds. You abuse these sounds, you are abusing me.
What do you mean? I mean,
my ears.
It's not like I can make
no.
dramatic. Oh, that's just ended down. It's starting out. But I'm doing a dramatic speech right now, like how much you.
It sounds like the Twilight soundtrack. Am I wrong?
Possibly. No, I've just noticed, and I'm not going to be using them again because they are quite distracting. And if I'm going to use this properly, I want to load up a lot of sounds. But now's not the time to do shit like that. Anyway, so because of that technical hitch and not having Ember Wolf on the podcast, nothing really changes, but I just thought I'd mention that anyway. So usually when I have someone new to the podcast who I haven't had before, I usually do like how do we meet? How do we do introductions, things like that. And this is going to be quite simple because usually what I say at this point, I don't know where we met. Was it at this Comic-Con? Was it this? Was it that? I exactly know where we met. We met relative to this podcast 1, 2, 3 days ago.
That really is a simple answer. There's no
Which
exercising the mind to think of the answer of this.
really isn't. And I mean, again, Ember would have been here to really explain it. But B, you explain why we knew each other, or we were introduced to each other 3 days ago.
Yes, absolutely. It was our darling Ember's birthday, and they were holding a cosplay meet at, it wasn't Regent's Park, it was Kew Gardens. And Eddie was one of the photographers that came along. Thank you, Eddie. They were absolutely stunning pictures from what I saw on the camera. I'm very excited for those. And that's where we met.
You'll
and
never see those photos.
Oh, no, please. Please, please. I actually looked good for once. And that's how we met. And then somehow the topic of furries came up, and because I love to shove it in everyone's face that I'm a furry, because I love being a furry, it came up, and so this podcast came into fruition.
Yes, and just to also say that the title of the podcast, "Furry in This Economy," that came from someone from the party as well. They kept saying it, and I went, "Do you know what? I'm going to use this as a podcast title." So, Matt of Splat Cosplay, thank you very much for that. Actually, I will credit you for that.
Thank you, Matt. It was
title.
lovely to meet you.
I don't know if he's going to hear this, but
Oh.
I could clip that and just send it to him and see what he says and does. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, so now we've done introductions. We've done like how we met each other, because was that quite easy, quite I was going to say early on. Was that the right word?
Straightforward.
Anyway, straightforward. That's the right word. God, it'd be really embarrassing if I ran a podcast and not know how to use words. Jesus, that'd be well embarrassing. Anyway, so we're going to talk about furries, because basically, I think I'm in the I think the majority of us are in the camp of, oh my God, they're so weird. Oh my God, I don't know them. Oh my God.
That's okay. That's what I think right now.
Yeah. You're supposed to be on the other camp.
Oh, well, I think most furries are in the middle camp. I don't think they completely know how to think about their own community. Again, I'm speaking for myself right here. I'm not trying to make a generalization for the whole community. Please know I come for me, furries. I promise you I am one of you.
Oh God, I don't know how to proceed that. But anyway, I'm going to carry on. So I thought, do you know what? These are my preconception about furries, and I think I'm wrong about furries. I bet they're just wholesome people. They just want to express themselves like us cosplayers who want to express ourselves in costumes and things like that. So why do we have this thinking? What is it we don't know about the furries that we can make them a bit more, less stigmatized maybe? I don't know. I just want to talk about it and just get a better understanding so that I'm not... I don't want to use the word freaked out by them, because I'm not really freaked out by them, but I do know that I'm like conflicted about if I approach them to take photos or not. So anyway, that's my point of view at the moment. So that's why I thought I'd do this podcast. We'll talk about furries, and as I said, Bees is very, helpfully volunteered to talk about it. Again, there's a disclaimer right at the beginning of the podcast where, these views are our own. These are truly our own. We're not representing the cosmic community or the furry community as a whole. These are just our thoughts coming out from our brains, and it may not align with yours, but who cares? I don't give a shit. Anyway, God, I'm just offending everyone at the moment. Anyway, I'm going to carry on. Shit. Oh, God. Anyway, so, B, I want to ask you, the term furry or furries, what does that mean to you? What's the definition of furries?
Well, so if you would look up furry, I think on the Urban Dictionary or on most search engines, you'll get someone who enjoys an anthropomorphic character, anthropomorphic meaning animal with human tendencies. That is the baseline of what a furry is to the world. But to me, I think it's a lot deeper than that. It's the love for a community of people who enjoy the same things as you. It is the ability to express yourself in this way. And yeah, generally that is what a furry is to me.
That's really interesting. I think, because I knew about the anthropomorphized. I can't pronounce that word clearly.
That's okay. I'll pronounce it for you.
Thank you. Go on.
Anthropomorphic. Oh, I was tripping on myself there. I was trying to imagine the letters in my head and read them out. It's a difficult word.
I love how you offered, went silent, and when I offered you went blah, blah, blah.
I did my best, okay? Is my best not enough for you?
No, clearly not at the moment. Do
Ouch.
better. Jesus Christ. No, that's interesting. I love that there is a deep meaning for you when it comes to furry. So we're still talking about the meaning of it. What do you mean by there's a deeper meaning for you, if you don't mind talking about it?
I think being a furry just goes past liking something because you're not alone in that liking. Just like cosplayers aren't alone in the fact that they're the only cosplayer, there are other people out there. And like, no matter how involved you are in the community, you are still part of a community by just liking this thing. It doesn't matter if you have friends in the community, it doesn't matter how much you know about the community, you're still in it because you're sharing this one very special common interest with a lot of people.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, this is why I want to do this podcast, because it feels like there's such a stigma around it, and it does seem to be like it's not even a subcategory of cosplay. It just feels like it's two different communities. And I'm not saying like the Jets and the Sharks in West Side Story, like, yeah, we're gonna like we're gonna like have a dance off between you and you. Yeah, yeah, let's do it that way. Like, it's not like that, but it does seem like that the worlds don't seem to want to touch each other, and I feel that's weird because if you really boil it down to it, it's just people getting dressed up. But I feel like, which we'll talk about that later in the podcast, that there's what that stigma is about furries. So yeah, so for you, we've talked about the meaning of it, but what's your attraction to being wanting to be in the furry world, or in a sense, how did you get into it? Well, what got you into it?
Right. So, how I became a furry is purely because of my own competitiveness. I've been a very creative person since I was very small. It's one of those classic stories of like I was drawing since I could hold a pencil, and one day, I think this was just before COVID, I came across like uh, a person just making a fursuit for the first time. And I'm not going to lie, they did a really, really good job. But something in me was like, I can do that better. Um, I'm a very competitive person, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, and so I was hell bent. I was completely hell bent on beginning this project and showing the world that I could make a very good first fursuit, and I did make quite a good first fursuit. I think I had a lot of skills. I studied design technology. I studied art for a long time, and I had the practical skills to be able to really like study the shapes that I liked. And so I built a fursuit and then I became a furry because I really liked making something and making something that mattered to me and that made me feel accomplished. And then I began designing characters. And when you design something, you just really have an emotional connection to it. And that was really my first persona, I guess.
It's really interesting to hear that it's your competitive nature that got you into the furry world. That it's not just one, you saw something and then you want to make it better. That you could make it better, but you do that, and you also want to be part of that world, and not just make it and just give it to someone else, or make commission of it. And I'm sure you have mentioned that you do commissions for it. So okay, so are you? I hate to ask this question, and I also know, how do I put this delicately? You're a very young lady. Yes?
Yes, I am. I'm 21.
Yes. 21. Okay, good. It's quite interesting that you like to be part of this world at such a young age.
I wouldn't consider myself young to enter the furry community. There's a lot of 11, 12-year-olds. The Warriors Cats books have certainly caused an upsurge in the amount of young furries that we have in our community. So I wouldn't say, on the grand scale of things in the community, I wouldn't say I was very young when I joined. I would say
Oh,
I'm kind of halfway. A lot of people do enter as people like who are my age and even older, but it is generally the community is not very skewed by age. I think you'll find a lot of people across many different age ranges. Um, and I'm not going to lie, this has caused problems in the past, but maybe we can discuss that in
well,
the future.
yeah, yeah, because I'm assuming talking about family and friends, but we'll even with cosplay friends. So we'll try to cross that bridge at later on. But the next question I've got on my list is what I've got to ring down is what is your extent in being a furry?
Like, what areas of the community am I involved in?
Okay, go on.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I started to be involved in the community on the fursuit side. I built that first fursuit, and then I started to look into the art. So I was involved in the fursuit and art side of the community. For fursuits, I have commissioned and I take commissions for fursuits. So I'm a consumer and a producer. For art as well, I take commissions and I also commission other artists. So I am both the consumer and the distributor of art, I guess. There's a side of the furry fandom which more closely crosses over the cosplay community. The Kemino Mimi ears, the little animal ears on a band. I make those, I buy them as well. I'm very into that part, and I have suited at conventions. So I also am a con goer furry as well. So I'm pretty much I've dipped my toes into every area of the fandom.
Sorry, I've got an image in my head now that you turn up at a convention in a fursuit but with those rain jacket on and say, "Hey, you want to be a furry? Come this way. You want to bring up your jacket? You want furry gloves? I got furry gloves. You want the head? I've got the head as well." Things like that. I don't know why that just popped in my head. I don't know why that imagery popped there.
Maybe I
And
should do something like that next time I fursuit to a con. You want some furry memes? I've got printouts in my jacket.
and just to get them on, ears for you. Have a free. Have a free. One out there. Oh my god, those ears are so good. Do you have more? Do you want? Oh no, you want more? But I have to start charging you.
10 great British pounds, please.
Is that how you hook them in? That's how you hook them in.
Absolutely.
I knew it.
Give them those free samples and then make them beg for more. Just like food, you know? Like when you pass someone on the street and they're like, "Oh my god, free samples." And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's amazing. Oh god, now I have to buy some."
Oh god, and they're the worst. Well, not the worst. The government's the worst at the moment.
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah, those look. Yeah, absolutely. They're utter trash. I don't know. We should probably get this back on track and all that. I want to know, when I say furries, am I just talking about, head to toe in fur, or are there different levels of being a furry?
So as I mentioned before, there's quite a few younger furries. So they are most likely not going to have fursuits because fursuits are luxury items and literally cost thousands, right? Also, children grow; they're going to outgrow a very expensive fursuit. So that's just not a very brilliant economical decision. But even as an adult, you don't have to have a fursuit to be a furry. You just have to enjoy it. Like, it doesn't matter to what degree you enjoy it. You could just consume the art and like it and still be a furry. Like, you don't have to have spent £5,000 to commission some big maker to make you something from head to toe. Like, it doesn't matter about your involvement, like the degree of involvement in the community. Like, as I have literally the same wording as 5 seconds ago, you just have to like it a little bit and you're furry.
Hang on, so I'm still stopped. I've stopped listening when I heard the word 5,000.
Oh, that's not even that expensive. I mean, that's like
What do you mean?
mid-range.
That's not expensive.
I mean that it's a mid-range. So the most expensive one, to my knowledge, I believe this was an auction in 2021. That was held by I'm not going to say the name of the maker because I'm not 100% sure it was them. They held a fursuit auction on Twitter, and a full body fursuit custom design went for $27,000, I think, give or take.
27.
And I believe that is the most expensive fursuit to date, but I could be wrong.
Oh, right, Googling now. Googling.
That's more
Google,
than I
Google.
make in a year.
Jesus Christ. Okay, right. First, but I have no most. Sorry, listeners. You have to
Oh, I'm being fact
Endure
checked.
this one. Damn right you are. Expensive. Not fursuit, fursuit. Right. Okay. 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 This was written in 14 February 2022. It's in. Okay. Let's go. Right. On this list, it's called Raw Dragon at $23,500. It's made with leather and latex.
Interesting. I don't know about that one.
The head is 3D printed.
Right.
The one that's one below it is the Primal Vision Cheetah at $17,500. I think it's actually the it says the most expensive was made by Lux Rudd, and supposedly it's a fur costing $10,000. Expensive, and it's not painted or sewn, while it's an NFL stretched.
I feel like I might have to fact check myself on this, but I'm pretty sure that fursuit was around the 27,000, and I'm pretty sure.
No, that's fine. Let me just put in the word Twitter then. Oh God.
I mean, I can look this up for you, and I can fact check.
No, that's fine. No, I'm very curious now. I'm just very curious. Anyway,
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong because it was a while ago. Maybe it was 17,000, but it was definitely it was very expensive.
No, I was going to say, suffice to say, is an expensive. Would you consider it a hobby?
Yeah, I don't know what else it can be. It's not really a lifestyle. It's not really like. Well, it can be a job for some people, but yeah, I think it would class as a hobby.
Yeah. Would you include as again what counts as fair? So you do like artwork. You don't have to wear it. You can just enjoy the artwork, like you said. But do you like football, soccer mascots? American football mascots. Do they count as being furries, or are they, because they're mascots for a sporting franchise or a team, they're not considered as furries?
So there's been a little bit of a conversation about this within the community. I think the sports mascots themselves, because the person inside them tends to do it as a job and not because they have a passion for it. They may have a passion for it. In that case, they probably would be a furry. But seeing as they are removed from the community, they would not count. But if people are buying the controversy here is when people buy very generic like Halloween masks, and there's a lot of conversation there about whether these are fursuits or not because they're very generic. I believe that if that's what you can afford, and that's how you are involving yourself in the community, anything can be a fursuit. But yeah, there's a bit of controversy because of the deeply personal connection that people have with their characters. So the lack of customization on some of these masks causes some people to believe that they are not furries.
I don't know if I'm actually impressed there's still gatekeeping.
I think within any community there's going to be some gatekeeping.
I don't understand, but I'm not saying of all communities. I didn't think the furry community was. I'm like, yeah, right. Every community has its own gatekeeper, and you just say, God, get over yourself, get off your high horse. Jesus Christ, who made you judge, jury, and executioner? Oh, Jesus Christ. No, it's interesting to get your point of view on that, and that's really interesting. And I think about the questions I'm about to start asking now. I feel like this is the stigma that people hear about the furry world, and again, these are probably my assumptions or my preconception. I've tried to read a little about it when I thought about this podcast. So forgive me if I'm offending anyone. I don't mean to cause offense.
But this is a learning curve. I'm here to not educate you, but I'm here to share my views, and I'm here to share them with everyone else.
Exactly. So, on that, now that I've just stepped on that landmine, here we go. When you're, regardless of the level of furry, when you're wearing a furry, if it's just the ears, maybe you're in a tail, or head to toe in a fursuit, is there any specific rules when you're being a furry or a persona you need to adopt? Like, if I, for some reason, decided to don a jaguar, fursuit, what, do I have to be that jaguar at all times? I can't break character per se. Is there specific rules for it?
Well, here I'm going to talk again a little about a controversy within the community. There are some people that very, very much believe that when you are in suit, you cannot do this thing called poodling. And poodling is when you are exposing human skin because it quote unquote breaks the magic. But in my opinion, who are you breaking the magic for? People are doing this for themselves. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do, right? When I fursuit, I will speak. A lot of people do not speak in fursuit. I will not put on a voice. I will use my own voice, and this is because a lot of the time I still need to be able to establish boundaries when I'm in the suit because no one can see my face, no one can see my expression, and I'm not going to subject myself to staying silent or staying in character. Um, because it might mean that I cannot defend myself, get myself out of a difficult situation, things like that. A lot of people are dedicated to their characters and they want to suit in this way for themselves, and so they do. But I suit for myself like a lot of other people do. And I genuinely believe you do whatever the hell you want when you are dressed up in any amount of gear or not.
Again, fascinating point of view. I'm really enjoying hearing this alternative point of view about furries. I think it sounds like a very independent, a very assured person that you know what you want from yourself, and and especially from what you do for yourself. Um. So okay, saying that then. Okay, so I like that you do. You do talk. So is there a hard fast rule then? You're not supposed to talk then?
A lot of people don't want to because they would like to embody the character that they are. A lot of people, very much like cosplayers, they use it to escape being them. So that is their way of doing it by acting like their character. But it's not really a written rule. There's no real written rules. Um, I mean, it it just seems with any community that doesn't have written rules, the loudest voices are the ones that are heard. So it might be that maybe the majority of people don't speak, therefore that might seem like a rule, but it's in reality it's not. They're just the people who are speaking loudest, and that's what is kind of more widespread.
Okay. Sorry if I'm asking a real dumb question.
There is
If
no
you're not
dumb
supposed to,
question.
I hope there isn't. So if you're not supposed to speak as a human, do you speak as the animal? Like if you're a dog, you bark?
There's this fursuiter called Telephone. I think that's the name of their character. They developed this very cool, I think they developed it, this very cool mouthpiece where they can whistle like a bird. It's they're not fursuiting as a bird. They're fursuiting as this made-up species called a Dutch angel dragon. But they get to make these very cool bird whistles of all varying tones and pitches, which they use to make sounds in fursuits. And it's you can do whatever you want. Like basically, if you want to bark in a dog fursuit, bark. If you want to bark in a cat fursuit, bark.
That's fascinating. I'm really impressed that someone actually developed a persona per se for that person. Do you treat each? Because I'm assuming you got more than one fursuit, like you got more than one cosplay. Do you like treat each fursuit or fur outfit as its own personality, or do you just enjoy just wearing it?
So I'm very, very lucky to have two suits. A friend of mine worked on my first fursuit, and I managed to find a brilliant maker with brilliant prices for my second one. It is very much a luxury to be able to have two suits, but both of these suits come from two pre-existing characters. One of them is called T. That is my main character, which I base most off myself. So I would just continue to act like myself in that suit. However, the second one, she is still unnamed despite me owning the character for about 3 years. She is a lot more quiet and reserved, and that does reflect when I'm in that suit. Um, but yeah, I think that answers the question. Question mark.
It it does, but also asks more questions. So is it? I'm now more fascinated. So do you look at the fursuit and kind of already decide the persona that you want to embody the fursuit?
I think it. I think it depends on your intention with this character because a lot of people will have something that's called a true sona, which is true to them, true to how they are in real life. Some people will have a vent sona, which they use to maybe project the more negative feelings that they're feeling. So I feel like everyone builds their characters in different ways. They might have different emotions behind when they created them. A lot of people might buy characters off of someone else. They might just adapt the personality that the previous owner determined for the character. You might have a whole. You might have like a sad character. You might have a happy character. You might have an angry character, but you're missing, I don't know, what's another emotion? I don't know, a hyperactive character. So you assign a hyperactive nature to a character just because that's the whole that you have in a rainbow of emotions.
But is that based because when you look at this fursuit or something that you yourself want to embody into that fursuit? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Is it something that
it,
is it something you develop once see it, or something you feel, if that makes sense?
I think I felt it with mine. But I also had to consider the design. And when I was making the character that I used to express more negative emotions, I needed something that I knew I could draw quickly. So I made that character with that intention. But sometimes I would look at a character. There was this one character I used to own called Minte. And I saw her and I was like, she's sassy. She's sassy. And I made her sassy. So it's different. It's different depending on the character. It's different depending on the person.
This is honestly blowing my mind. I'm enjoying listening to all of this. How is it? I'm now going off script now because I'm half getting what I'm written down. But how easy is it to then? Let's say today,
Yes.
after this podcast, do you know what? I'm going to get into the furry community.
Yes.
How easy for me to then go and get? Well, should I be jumping at the deep end at a fursuit, or should I build up slowly, like buy the merchandise, give myself then some years? What would you think? I know everyone's going to be different, but if you were advising someone, what would you be advising?
Yeah, so as you just said, everybody is different. The way that I would advise before leaping and making a very big financial decision, I would advise consuming quite a lot of art, deciding what you like in a character's design, and then having a go at designing one yourself. If you don't like the way it's coming out, there's the option of commissioning someone else to design it for you. We have character designers in the community. I've designed a few of my characters, but I've also outsourced the design of some of them or bought characters that someone has lost connection to. And connection to a character is very expensive, important, especially considering that characters can get expensive. You commission art of them, you can buy a fursuit of them. You need to make sure that that connection with this character is there. For example, I knew that it would be a smart decision of commissioning a fursuit of the character that I loved most and have loved for 2+ years, because I knew that that connection had longevity, and I knew that I wouldn't receive this fursuit and be like, oh my God, I've spent XYZ amount of money and I don't even like it. Like, I don't feel a connection for this character. I don't want to own this character anymore. So I would start off with, media consumption that's free, really. And then you can start commissioning art, and commissioning art can be however much you want it to be, because you can find artists with a price point that suits you, or and there are many, many, many ranges of prices for furry art. There's a lot of beginner artists who will price themselves very, very low. And there are artists whose entire career is furry art that have, well done to them. They're able to sell a headshot for $250. Like, there's such a range in pricing that you can really make your experience in the community as expensive as you want it to be, really.
This is absolutely fascinating. I'm absolutely fascinated by all this. I like the idea. It sounds like it's, I would say, an easier gateway than cosplay, because it sounds like if you want to cosplay, you've got to get the gear, you've got to get all the material either to make or to buy. Whereas if you want to get into the furry community, you can actually just start with the artwork and build from there, and that's a fairly inexpensive type of world to get into. Can I just check something? Because you mentioned about ears, and I mentioned about ears, but I want to still make sure that what I'm thinking what a furry is still inclusive of this category, or it's different. So if I shot a cosplayer, let's say for example, is it Luna from Hello Boss?
Yes.
If all they're just wearing is the feet, maybe some claw hand gloves, again, if I'm using wrong terminology, forgive me, and they've got the ears and and a wig for hair, does that count, or is that's more cosplay or more furry?
I believe that is the person who's cosplaying's opinion. For example, Ember is a Luna cosplayer. Ember is also a furry. Ember, I would theoretically, and I'm not trying to speak for Ember, would see themselves as cosplaying a furry because they have that connection and they are happy to make that connection to the furry fandom. There are some cosplayers who are not as happy to make that connection with the furry fandom because they do not feel like that is part of the furry fandom. So that part is very, I get confused between subjective and objective a lot. But that is more personal to their own opinion.
That's a fantastic answer. And again, you're right, it is definitely a personal connection.
Some
If
people
they
just don't
are,
want to be considered a furry, and that's fine.
which is fine, absolutely fine. I'm not trying to project that we should change our minds about furries. I'm just wanting to talk about it, and just, if people are interested, to be educated about it. That's all it is. As we're talking about cosplay, and you had mentioned that you've taken it to a cosplay, to a Comic-Con, and wearing a fursuit. So, stupid question, and I'm sure I already know the answer, but I just want to get over how of you. Do you get strange looks at Comic-Con when you wear dressed as a furry?
No, not really.
Oh, fair enough. Next question.
Everyone is, enjoying what makes them happy. Yes, there have been some people who really don't get positive attention when they're at cons. And even just in a Luna cosplay, people will tease them. There was an incident at, I believe it was November MCM. And I guess I'm talking about Ember again. Ember was dressed as some kind of furry character with ears and tail on, and some school thought that it would be very intelligent to bring their school kids to MCM as a school trip. And these kids,
Oh, yes.
these
I heard
kids
about this.
did
I was actually,
not
I caught the tail end of this.
Yes, these kids did not treat a lot of cosplayers with respect. And it wasn't just the furries, it was cosplayers in general. They would just tease them about how they looked. Um, but on the most part, I kind of blend in at that point. Everyone's dressed up, everyone's just enjoying their own time, their own space, their own schedule. They don't really have the time or the need to worry about what I'm dressed as.
I find that such an interesting question, because I do know that I see them, and I'm, like I said right at the top of the podcast, I'm conflicted about approaching them or not, because we're going to talk about the stigma question in a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if I want that. I hate to say in this manner, I don't know if I want to have a photo in my portfolio, because there is such a stigma around them. But you're making like it's such a, there's no issue with the world you wearing a furry fursuit from head to toe. You're enjoying your day, you're doing it, the whole world is enjoying it with you. I think that's such a fascinating answer.
I think it really depends on the people that are around you. There are definitely people who are more accepting, and it really just depends on the crowd you're in. Like, for example, I wouldn't want to go out on the streets because I know more likely that, random people off the streets that will have pretty much no connection and no awareness of furries, and they'll probably more likely judge me than someone who, is a cosplayer. They know a little bit more about furries. Yes, they might be aware of and think something along the lines of the stigma that we have surrounding us. But I forgot where I was going with this. But a lot of cosplayers tend to be more accepting because they also have stigma around them. So it really
Oh,
depends
oh,
who you're interacting with, really.
absolutely. Yeah, like I said, no communities about their stigma or their dramas, things like that. I don't know. I do feel like even now listening to you, furries have got the wrong end, the harsh end of the stick, and maybe we should just give them a little bit more slack. At least that is it. Okay, are there anything I should be aware of when approaching a furry? As in, as a photographer, a Comic Con photographer, if I go up to a furry to take their photo.
Yes, there is some etiquette that a lot of people would not really be aware of unless they were furries. Again, as I mentioned, some furries don't speak. And because of this, a lot of furries need what's called a handler, someone who is out of a suit and is able to speak for them, is able to guide them, because the vision in a suit isn't incredible, right? The person in the fursuit might not even realize someone's stopping them for a fursuit. I mean, a picture. So when you find a furry you'd love to take a picture of or with, it's best to look out for someone who is with them that isn't wearing a fursuit and ask them. If you really want to ask the furry directly because you can't find their handler, as crude as it sounds, you have to get in front of them because the only way they can see really is straight. They have no peripheral vision. So you have to get right in front of them, give them a friendly wave, because that shows that your intention is good, because that's all. Their hearing is obstructed, their eyesight is obstructed. Give them signals, make it easy for them. And then you would ask, quite loud because their hearing's obstructed, can I get a selfie with you, or can I take some pictures with you? They'll nod, they'll shake their head as an answer, but they're generally very chill. If you see a furry with their head off, but the rest of their gear on, they're probably resting, so you shouldn't really approach them. It's like cosplayers. If they're sat down, you probably shouldn't approach them because they're resting.
So I have another image in my head where I'm just like trying to catch their attention, like one of those people on the ground ushering a plane to its parking lot, with the luminous like rods in their hand, going, "Come this way,
That would help us.
hello." No, I don't know if I would feel really conscious myself beckoning a furry, someone in a fursuit, shouting and waving my arms about, because it feels like I'm being very dismissive, very rude to them. But you're saying no, to kind of do that. If you can't see that hand, that is new to me. That I've never known about. So it's something I will keep an eye on. Is that would it be quite obvious who the handler is, or just it just pot luck that they may or may not have one?
The handler. A lot of people can't source handlers for whatever reason. Maybe this person also wants to enjoy the con in their own way, and they don't know many people who are, accepting of the fact they're furries. But they should be quite noticeable because they will probably be kitted out with some furry merch of their own, whether it be like a picture of their persona with a name underneath. It's called a name badge. They might be wearing something bad. They might be wearing, I don't know, like a beanie with a paw print on it or something like that. They'll probably be wearing some kind of furry merch as well, because at the end of the day, they're probably a furry as well. Maybe they take it in turns or whatever. But they will be pretty much attached, because sometimes, because of the obstructed vision, they will have to physically guide them through a crowd or walk them in the right direction. So if a furry has a handler, they are most likely going to be very, very attached.
When do you mean by what do you mean by furry merchandise? I think that's a bit I'm getting stuck on.
Yeah, so furry merchandise can really be anything. Furry merchandise can be like a t-shirt with your character, someone else's character, or just like quote unquote furry designs. So like, I don't know, maybe a wolf head and some design. That could also be considered like normal t-shirts, because normal t-shirts also have wolves on them. The line there is a little bit blurred, but a lot of furry artists will design their own merch, and I think that's probably where it starts to be classified as furry merch, when it's designed by a furry themselves with the intention of being for furries.
Okay, gotcha, cool. I just want to make that there's a clear distinction. Cool. So let's talk about the furry suit in the room. The bad joke, I know.
Terrible.
So, in your opinion, thank you very much. In your opinion, so delayed in my head that was. In your opinion, Why do you think furries have such a stigma around it?
Ooh, I know this one. Um, sorry, this is something I've thought about. This is something I've thought about quite a
Right.
lot, and it's not just because I've been thinking about it from a furry perspective. I've been thinking about it from the perspective of a lot of communities. Um, the negative parts of a community are most likely what are going to be amplified. They're most likely going to be, you know, brilliant for a news title because it gets attention. Like there, I wouldn't call it a trigger word, but it would be an attention word. Like, oh, um, I don't know, furry man abuses like girlfriend or something. They put that word in there because they're trying to get your attention. And so then those associations start forming. Um, I'm not saying this happens, but I'm using it as an example. Then they'll take that headline and people will start to assume, oh, all furry men must be violent because of this one headline. Um, and when you don't know much about something, you are most likely to be critical of it. You're most likely to be uncertain of the people in that community. And that goes for other communities as well. Like the LGBT community can be very demonized. And, in headlines, people will be like, really make an emphasis on someone's sexuality, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with the story at hand. For example, some news outlets in the US love to make a statement on whether someone who's committed a crime is of a particular sexual orientation or faith, because they use these trigger words. They use it for engagement. They use it for just fear mongering, really. They prey on the fact that people don't know a lot about these people and they want to get attention in some way. So that's, I think, where a lot of stigma comes from.
And I think that's where some of my preconception comes from, because I've been hearing, if I'm honest, I don't know much about furries until I thought about this podcast. From what I know about furries, it's actually just from hearsay from other people talking about stories that they've heard. And I bet you that story's just been perpetuating over and over, being more embellished over and over. Like,
Maybe it did
the,
happen because, as with
yeah,
any community, especially when as big as the furry community, there are going to be terrible people. And there are people who have committed like horrible crimes within who are part of the furry community. But what you have to remember is that is a very, very, very small percentage of the overall like
yeah,
people in that community. But of course, that's what's going to travel outside the community because of, you know, the amount of grip that it will have on someone who doesn't really know about the furries. They'll hear the story and be like, they'll tell everyone because that's the story that holds their attention. For example, you don't really hear about the thousands and thousands of dollars that furries donate to charity at many conventions. Like a lot of conventions have a very charity focus. They have appeals and they have things like that. You don't hear about that. No, you hear about the violent or you know, mad crimes that come out of someone who's in the community instead.
no, absolutely. And I think the stories I've heard is like, oh, furries get into like some sadistic sexual, fantasy they're playing out. Like, sure, I'm sure no cosplayer in the whole community hasn't had sex in their cosplays,
Yeah.
being their character. No one has done that. That's God forbid if anyone's done that. I'm looking at you. Yes, you. Not really. I'm not really looking at you. That'd be really creepy. If I was literally just next to the window, pop my head in, hello, I want you to listen to my podcast. No, but like I said, it's yeah. For me, a lot of these preconceptions about furries are now being shattered now, because at the end of the day, they're just like cosplayers. They just want to wear what makes them feel comfortable, what they feel like is their, in a sense, their identity, their skin type of thing. I mean, am I saying the right
No,
words?
no, you're good. You're good. I understand what you're trying to say.
Excellent. No, that's good. And like I said, I mean, it's like I've not personally like been attacked by the furry or know much about it. Like I said, I've only heard through like media outlets or people go, "Oh my god, it's a furry!" So dressed up it made me think. Like recently, said, why am I thinking like this? Why have I why do I react the way I do? Because no furry's gone to me and like, oh my God, look at you, photographer. You think you know it? Like, oh God, I didn't mean to. God, I don't mean to offend you, furry. I'm like, hey, why am I being attacked here? Why am I attacking them? You know, it in the real grand scheme of things, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, we're dangerously running out of time on the podcast. God, Jesus Christ, has been more time since I've recorded a podcast. But anyway, so I just want to finish off on a really positive note, and I want to. So I think we've already answered, but let's get a real long answer. Do you like cosplay? Is being in a fursuit or part ways, in a fur, just wearing the ears and things like that? Does that give you like confidence? Does it feel like you're a different identity, that like in a sense the real you that you feel like you're more comfortable being, if that makes sense?
So give me a second to have an answer to that. I think that yes, I can be more confident. I think it also helps as someone who has quite a lot of insecurities about their physical appearance. It helps that no one can see that when I'm in fursuit. But I think it just, for me, it unlocks something that's already there because of that. I'm not really changing myself in fursuit. I'm just more confidently being who I am because there are insecurities that aren't holding me back. And I think that's the same for quite a lot of people in the community. But, we're not necessarily transformed. I myself in my cosplay, I don't really become the character. That's not my intention in cosplay, to completely become the character personality wise in that, because I'm a terrible actor. I wouldn't be able to hold that for more than about 5 seconds. And I think the same goes in the fursuit. In fact, it might even be more energy in the fursuit because you're taking away the expression side of it. You're very limited into how you can actually come across to someone who's watching you because you're lacking that facial expression. You're lacking, for some people, sound because they choose not to speak. So I think the experience and what it draws out of people is different for every person. But for me, yes, it does give me that confidence that I wouldn't otherwise have. Yeah.
No, I like I said, I'm sure it was an obvious answer because it's similar. It's similar to like in cosplay, how people who become the character, such as like I'm just going to pick superheroes like Batman, Superman, Iron Man, Superman. I've done all minute, man. Let's switch it up. Wonder Woman, Scarlet Witch, Black Widow. People like those. They, being those characters, I can definitely envision that will give them such a confident boost that they don't have to like worry about. I always said, I don't know if it's a real positive or negative way of saying this, but it's escapism, really. It's escapism from your daily life being someone else or something else for just for a few hours. It doesn't have to be a day. It can just be a few hours. In that few hours can be such a relief.
Oh, it absolutely is. It takes this big, massive weight off your shoulders. You're able to,
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is literally a form of escapism, and it's a great comfort. It's an ability to have a break. It's an ability to think about things that, or let go of things, really.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's like, because I do find going to Comic-Con, that's my escapism. I like to think that the version that people see at Comic-Con is not really me in public. I know, B, you can't really say because we've only just met the once, but hopefully there'll be more occasions that we get to meet you. I hope so. You better. I want this recorded on the podcast. If you ever see me at a comic or if I see you, you come and see. Well, I say if I see you cosplayers fucking look like every other person. I can't tell who's who anymore.
That's okay. I'll just come up to you and stand in front of you until you realize that it's me.
No, don't do that. That's too
No,
many.
I'll just red man emoji. No. You know the red man emoji? He just stands there and he's got a red shirt on. That's going to be me. Until you clock who I am, I'm just going to stand there. Okay? Remember that.
No, because anyone who listens to this podcast, now they're going to stand next to me, look at me, I'm going to go, is that you? Is that you? Is that you? Is it you? Is it you? You're not talking, G. This is not fair. Oh my god, this is, oh god, is that very, oh god, damn it.
All right, fine. I'll introduce
And
myself.
I was going somewhere with my thought now, but now I forgot what I was talking about. So, no, it's just the escapism, things like that. So that's what I was on about. And I can imagine it's the same for being a furry and things like that. I didn't realize actually how expensive it was. Again, stupid question. What's cheaper, being a cosplayer or being a furry?
A furry is as expensive as you want it to be. As I mentioned, media consumption is free. You can choose the artists you commission. You can choose the fursuit makers you commission. You can choose not to have a fursuit. You can choose not to commission art at all. You can do it all yourself. And cosplay, in a way, also, you can make it however much you like. But at the end of the day, when you're cosplaying, you are in a costume, you are wearing something. But for a furry, you don't necessarily need to have art of your character. You don't necessarily have to have a fursuit of your character. So I feel like the minimum financial requirement of a furry is less of that of a cosplayer. Ish. Oh my god, none of these communities, please don't come for me. I'm trying to make a very, very generalized statement based on observation.
Just to let you know, her name's B. Don't come after me, all right? That's all I'm saying. No, it's really good to talk about this, and I will head the podcast here now, but we'll do one more question, and we'll put it on the podcast extra. We're going to talk about which she doesn't know about, so I'll give her time to think about it. Which is the weirdest or memorable moment whilst being a furry. So if you want to hear that answer, jump onto my Patreon, which I'll give you links to first. But just want to say at this junction, B, thank you very much for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
I'm glad it's been a blast. I hope you enjoyed yourself being on the podcast talking about it.
When's part 2 coming out? When are we doing a Furry in this Economy part 2?
Part 2, when we get Ember on it. We'll get Ember on it, and then we'll complete this podcast that way around. If people need to find you on the social medias and just send you hate or just commission you, where can they find you?
They can find me on Honeybee on Instagram. That is h.oneybii. That is my cosplay Instagram. Or on my fursuit account, they can find me at T Tower. That is spelled TEATQWR. Right. Loads of usernames were taken, guys. I had to take some liberties here. But those are my socials.
Fantastic. And I'll have those links in the podcast description if you find it on the foodandcosplay.org website or the foodandcosplay.lipsync.com. You'll find those links there, okay? Talking about links, here's my link. So if you go to foodandcosplay.org/links, you'll find all my social media links there, such as Instagram, TwitTwat. What is TwitTwat? It's probably a mixture of TikTok and Twitter. Anyway, those type of websites. If you go to foodandcosplay.org, generally you'll find daily cosplay photos and some articles here and there. What else do I usually do at this point? If you go to foodandcosplay.org/podcast, you'll find previously recorded podcasts with other guests, with other subjects. I think hopefully the one that preceded this one was, do you just point and click? No, but all you do is just point and click, as in photographers and things like that. If I got that wrong, I'm so sorry. Something snuck in between that podcast and this podcast. Anyway, I'm babbling. What was I going to say next? If you go to patreon.com/foodandcosplay, you can help donate £2 to help produce these podcasts. But also, I'm doing, as I mentioned, podcast extras. So if you want to hear last week's one as well as this week's, well, I say last week's. Anyway, I'm babbling here. But yes, go to this and listen to our answers for that. And, you know what mayhem can create that come out of that. So, and I think that's about it. So, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. No, actually, I would say thank you one more time to B. Thank you for being on this podcast and being very honest. And
thank you for inviting me.
You are most welcome. And definitely on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and B's going to say goodbye. So, bye, guys!
Bye, everyone!
Very furry. I don't know why I said that.